First Things First podcast. And first things first, we need you to subscribe and leave comments letting us know what you think of the show. We're listening. I'm Nick Wright, joined by two of my favorite people, Jenna Wolfe, Cris Carter. Now, let's get the show started.
Oh, there you are. Hi, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That dapper young fellow is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. Not to be outdone is Nick Wright, right over here. How are you guys?
Is that some velvet or velour in your tie?
Did you say velour?
It is.
Merry Christmas to you, Cris Carter.
Festive.
Good to see you, Jenna. You
Last
look fantastic.
show before Christmas.
Thank you.
Beautiful dress.
Thank you, thank you. Festivus for the rest of us. How's everybody doing?
Doing great.
Awesome. We are kicking off a very, very sporty, productive weekend. We are going to start with a little football. Being the patriotic bunch that we are, we begin with America's game of the week. It is the Seahawks at the Cowboys. It is Sunday. It is on Fox. And yes, it is a shameless plug. Both teams are 8-6. Both teams are desperate for a win. All right, guys, here's how this works. The winner of this one has hope for the playoffs. The loser of this one can start planning their winter vacations. You can get a good deal for a week in Turks right about now. Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott believes in his team. Take a listen to this.
Regardless if the things fall our way or not, I know how dangerous this team can be and the direction we're heading in and the momentum we're picking up as we're going. So, I mean, we're going to worry about what we can control, and that's just winning out. And it's one game at a time, and right now it's going to be the Seattle team. So that's all we're focusing on, and we'll cross our fingers with the rest of the stuff.
A lot of storylines in this one, CC, but at face value, with an 8-6 team and an 8-6 team, tell me how you like this matchup playing out.
Well, there's a huge dynamic that's going on here. One team is getting back one of the best players in the league, and they will be rejuvenated because of their playoff aspirations being alive. And another team that's been a dominant team for 6 years, they're bickering at each other because they don't have the personnel. They don't have a style of play for which they're used to playing at that they can play at because of lack of bodies. You have great players like Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas bickering on Twitter. Bobby Wagner played last week with a bad hamstring, shouldn't have played in the game, and they got gutted through the middle by Todd Gurley in the L.A. Rams. So you got teams going in different directions, but this is what I expect from Pete Carroll. And this is the way he's been every place he's been. He's a very enthusiastic coach. He coaches with a lot of energy at all levels. I expect this to kind of be the last stand for Seattle. Now, they don't have the bodies that we're used to. They don't have the enforcer and Cam Chancellor. They don't have Richard Sherman. They don't have the type of swagger that we're used to seeing with the Seahawks. But they could see next year this could be a totally different team. Russell Wilson, they can't protect him. But because they're so well coached and because they've had success for a long time, this is their last battle. They know they must win this game. It's not a great matchup going against Dallas with Zeke coming back. And I expect Zeke to give Dallas the juice that they've been missing. We watched Dallas say, man, they look pretty good, but what's missing? It's the heart and soul of the Cowboys, and it's Ezekiel Elliott. He gives them the swagger when they get off the bus, off the plane, that they feel like we're one of the best in the league because they have one of the best, and he helps really cover up some of their lack of, size on their defense, lack of big-time playmakers on their offense. So that's what I expect to see this weekend's game. It's going to be exciting. Last stand for Seattle. Yep. I mean, they've been dominant for a long time. In Dallas, are they going to go 2 years with this young group without making the playoffs or making a dent in the playoffs?
Right, without winning a playoff game, which is if they don't make it this year, obviously they can't. Oh, it's a nice present. I didn't even know you had that on the desk.
I know, we came out here so late. I didn't get a chance.
So I think the Cowboys win this game. I think the Cowboys win this game primarily because I do not think Seattle, as presently constituted, is a good football team. And that might seem harsh, but I want to go back to something we did on this show, something every sports show does at the beginning of the NFL season. For us, it was the very beginning of this show existing, which is we make our Super Bowl picks. And there's almost no sport in America where that's a more foolhardy exercise than the NFL because of injuries. So my Super Bowl pick on the NFC side, I had Giants-Steelers. Now, the Giants pick looks like it was disastrous no matter what, but what happened to the Giants a month into the year? They lose their best player on the team to injury.
Even in preseason.
He was hurt in the preseason. Jenna's Super Bowl pick on the AFC side, the Houston Texans. What happened to them? Oh, they lose their best player on defense and their best player on offense due to injury. CeCe's Super Bowl pick on the NFC side. Seattle. Oh, they lose their two most important defensive players, Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, to injury. And so this is not the Seattle team that has made the playoffs 5 years in a row. This is not the Seattle team that is always dangerous come December and January because KJ Wright's been out. Bobby Wagner tried to play, and it was admirable, but he ended up hurting his team. Richard Sherman has a popped Achilles. Cam Chancellor's done for the year. Their offensive line's in such disarray. They trade for a left tackle midway through the season. They're just not the team we're used to seeing, and because of that, Dallas, on the other hand, is one of the healthier teams in the league right now. And this time of year, of course, talent matters. Of course, coaching matters. But what matters almost more than anything as far as disqualifying you from contention is how healthy are you or how injured are you.
And not only does Dallas win the matchup as far as injuries goes, which is super important, but when it comes to these two teams, Dallas also wins the matchup of, in-house fighting, if you will. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of, the bad juju going on in Seattle right now. Players are annoyed. They're taking it to social media. Pete Carroll's got double duty. He's got to get this team prepared, and he's got to get them all on the same page. This seems to work in Pittsburgh, but I don't know if this works in Seattle. How much does Dallas take advantage of that?
Seattle has had a lot of chaos. Pete he's the coach in the National Football League that he tells you, I want you to be the best Jenna, the best Nick you can be. Now, it's my job to bring out the best in you, but I want your personality. You can be whoever you are in this locker room. They are a true melting pot of a lot of outspoken, but it didn't just start this year. Remember this offseason they tried to trade. They said they were going to try to trade Richard Sherman. Also, last season, Pete Carroll and Richard Sherman had some dust-ups on the field.
Last offseason, they had a whole group trip to try to finally get over the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Marshawn Lynch wondering if it was a political reason he didn't get the ball. They have had borderline chaos in the locker room for a long time. The difference is this year they're not good. You can deal with it when you're good, and you can almost use it. Some of the most famous Seattle moments had been the team surrounding Richard Sherman on the sideline.
Yes.
And he's flipping out. But they fed off that in a positive way. The injuries, to my eyes, have been too much. And then on the Dallas side of the ball, I always feel awkward saying this because we know why Zeke was suspended. We know how horrifying it is what he's accused of. But from a purely football perspective, if they make the playoffs, the suspension works for them. Le'Veon Bell's going to have 450 touches this year. Look at the other top running backs in the league. The Saints are in an advantageous position because they're able to split the workload. But you mentioned Todd Gurley, how much he's being used. Zeke just got 6 games to rest, 6 games to be fresh coming into this stretch run. That works in their favor. And Sean Lee being healthy, Tyron Smith, if his ankle's okay, being healthy, all of that works in their favor this weekend.
It really does. And it's kind of the irony to the season because we were saying Zeke takes the suspension early. It gives them plenty of time to recover. But, let's not forget what the actual numbers are. The percentage of chances of them making it, even if they win this game, are still 7% of making the playoffs. But things are on the uptick in Dallas, and things are on the downward in Seattle.
The only thing to worry about is this is one of those games where it looks perfect on paper. It does not look like Dallas can lose this game. They've got health. They've got they've got a jolt of this new player basically coming back and joining them. It seems like they've got Seattle beat. These are one of those trap games that you can always foresee.
The only reason that I don't think that will apply this weekend is last weekend Seattle looked dead. They were playing for the division. They were playing all the injuries, everything that's going on with them. If they beat the Rams last weekend, they sweep the season series. They are in the driver's seat for the division. And if they had lost a hard-fought game, I would maybe not read that much into it.
Nick, are you a history buff?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Absolutely. Custer's last stand. Did he die?
Custer, it was his last stand for a reason, CC. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Seattle.
Seattle. Oh, that was it?
Yes.
That was their last stand? Okay, got it.
Welcome back to First Things First. Joining us now is Eric Mangini. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to see you, Coach.
Yeah, I missed you guys the Knicks game yesterday.
Oh, that makes 2 of us.
Oh, my goodness.
But I watched from the hotel, which was nice.
Which was nice.
Sore
So
subject.
Coach and I watched from the hotel.
Jenna, what time did you go to bed last night?
Doesn't matter. I would have gone to bed.
No, what time did you go to bed last night?
7:30.
What time?
What? When?
7.
7:30.
Nick, what time did we meet last night?
7:40.
Okay. What time did you get home last night, bro?
11:15.
Okay, no problem. So,
Okay. I mean, it is what it is, but listen, it's all good.
Yeah.
There'll be a Sunday afternoon game that we'll all go to together.
yeah, the last 2 weeks and you didn't show up.
I
Eric,
promise you.
Invited, didn't show up.
You see it?
Last
you see
week.
that? He made contact.
When you start coming to Harlem,
contact.
we'll take you to the garden.
I didn't go to bed at 7:30.
Okay, he could have gone.
We'll
All
cover that later.
Let us talk some football. Much the way my 2-year-old will run at full speed, trip over the carpet, go flying through the air, and land perfectly on the couch without but a bruise, so are the New England Patriots. Tough season, injuries, a suspension, a shaky defense, but here they are at 11-3 and on top of the couch known as the AFC. What a bridge, Nick.
Yes, I liked it.
This weekend they get the Bills coach.
She sounds like Sarah Huckabee.
I like it. I like it.
Okay.
Keep going. The water bridge. Keep going. Keep going.
Touche.
Keep going.
Coach, I'm sure these Bills spent the week watching a ton of film from the Steelers game. What can they learn on how best to stop the Patriots?
Well, you can't just go back and watch the last game, and it's really hard to watch any game to get a pattern that you can use because New England's going to play you differently than they play everybody else. So there may be some general themes that you can take, but in terms of the specifics, it's much harder to do against them. What I would say they have to do is what they did really well last game, which is run the ball. So LaShawn McCoy had almost 6.2 yards a carry. They had 7 yards a carry overall as a team. They used some wildcat, which I love. At this point, they can't leave anything in the bag. So whether it's onside kicks, fake punts, gadget plays, all those things have to be available and used going into this game. They've got nothing to lose, and their best bet is to run the ball effectively and keep Tom Brady off the field.
One of my favorite football writers is a guy named Bill Barnwell. And I think it might be unfair for an 8-win team to use this comparison, but he calls games like this a Goliath game. Meaning, like, when the other team is more talented than you throughout, when they are a heavy favorite, as this Patriots team is, that's the game where you want to add, more variance to it. An onside kick game. Going for it on more fourth downs. Doing more things that, hey, if it goes against you, you could lose this game by 35 points. You know what I mean? You are opening yourself up to getting blown out because there's no interest in just keeping it close. You know what I mean? A close loss for the Bills is as bad as a 35-point loss. They're trying to make the playoffs. They're trying to beat a team that knows we win these last two, we get home field. So the Patriots are fully incentivized to be fully operational. The point you mentioned about LaShawn McCoy, to me, that's the only path to victory for the Buffalo Bills, is if what we saw Le'Veon Bell do once Antonio Brown went out. CeCe, you mentioned how he was getting out on the edge better than you've seen almost anybody do on the Patriots. LaShawn McCoy's not quite Le'Veon Bell, but he's pretty damn close. He's a really good player.
Yes.
He has to be a guy that gets 35 touches in this game. Like, you cannot use him too much, in my estimation, in this football game, and fourth and short is an automatic go for it for me if I'm the Bills in this game.
Yeah, if I'm the Bills, I'm looking at 3 games. I'm not looking at the Pittsburgh game in itself because also my personnel doesn't match up with what Pittsburgh can do, especially offensively. The weapons that they have don't have that outside of Shady McCoy. But I go back to the Miami game. New England, no conversions on third down. Only 3. You said 3 of 8.
The 3 of 20 in the last 2 games.
Yeah, so 3 of 10 in the Pittsburgh game. And then I go back to the first 30 minutes of the last time Buffalo played New England, which they played them very close. You know, things got out of control after that second half. Belichick, man, that halftime, I mean, he's a magician. And they come out, take the momentum from you, typically drive straight down the field. Defense gets a 3-and-out, or you get a first down, and Tom Brady's back on the field in another 3 minutes.
And Tyrod got hurt in the second half of that game.
Yeah, and they put Peter Pan in there. I mean, Peterman.
Yes.
I mean, but we wouldn't be in this spot if they hadn't benched Tyrod, remember?
Separate discussion.
Let's not forget the game that Peterman started. So if I'm Buffalo, I'm not only looking at the Steelers, I'm looking at that Miami game because it tells a story. And also, what did we do when we faced them the last time? And they ran the ball against New England. Now, what did New England do? New England dropped Tom Brady back only 30 times, but Buffalo got to him 3 times. So, 1 out of every 10 dropbacks, he got sacked. So they got some hits on Brady. So the physicality of the running game and Brady, a common theme, we know. You got to get to Brady and through the middle.
And let's bring up another name, Tre'Davious White. There might be some retribution in this game, a little bit of a retribution aspect to it with Gronk. I don't know if that plays into it all. We have short memories in the NFL.
There's definitely going to be an element of that, and everything coming out of both locker rooms is it's not going to play any part in the game.
Yes.
And I don't think Gronkowski is. I think he wants to move as far away from this as he possibly can.
He does.
Yeah, he does. But everybody knows what happens, and I'm sure that's in the back of the minds or the front of the minds of a lot of guys in Buffalo, and that could be an issue. This was also, wasn't this the Josh McDaniels, Tom Brady yelling at each other game? I mean, there are a lot of subplots to the last time these two teams played. But just going back to a blueprint with New England, you can't do the same things in the second half that you did in the first half and think it's going to have the same type of success. So you've got to have something else there, a second pitch to throw at him defensively in that second half.
And Tre'Davious White, you have to listen to his comments going into it. He said that rethinking the game and who Gronk is, he does not think that Gronk is a dirty player and that there would be no retaliation on his part. And it was a very, very mature comment by a young player. And by the way, besides Marshawn Lattimore, the corner in New Orleans, this kid is playing some great football. He'll definitely make the all-rookie team. So he's just not someone out there who's not a good player. I don't think he's going to take it personal. He came from the SEC, came from LSU, so he's been involved in some heated rivalries before. But I like his approach. He addressed it. Said he didn't think Gronk was a dirty player, even though it was a dirty play, and that he had moved on from it.
Even if Tre'Davious White is not going to want to retaliate, this would be my concern. I remember a few weeks ago, I said something about how I think the Patriots use Gronk, and of all my things I've said in the year plus we've known each other, the one that I think I could feel you rolling your eyes at the most was my thought that the Pats are conservative with their usage of Gronk, especially early in the year, in order to try to prevent injuries. I think you said they're trying to win games. They're not worried about that. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can disagree on that. If I'm New England,
okay, we do.
Yes.
If I'm New England in this game, I am trying my hardest to not have to throw the ball to Gronk down the middle. Not because I'm worried about someone going high, but hey, you know where you're supposed to take guys now? Low. You know where you can hurt a guy? Low. And you know what's not you're not going to get flagged for? But guys try not to. Guys try not to go at a guy's knees or below. They try if they can at like professional courtesy. And so I would be, even if Tre'Davious White.
Nick, I've seen this happen. One guy apologizes, but the linebacker and the defensive lineman, they don't forget.
Right.
And what they say, what goes around, comes around. So I like White's approach, but you make a great point. And, Coach, you've seen this happen. Man, someone will come out of nowhere who had nothing to do with it and try to even the score. Would that be a concern
with your usage of Gronk in this game?
No. It wouldn't be, because you're going to use him the same way. And, look, if you want to go low on Gronk, you got to make that decision. And he's a pretty significant human being traveling at a high speed. So if you want to take that chance, there's a good possibility you come out of it worse.
Welcome back to First Things First. Vikings play the Packers this weekend. Before you lock in the 11-3 Vikings for this one, note this little nugget. Packers quarterback Brett Hundley. Hundley has thrown 6 touchdown passes and only 1 interception in his past 3 starts against the NFC North. Bam, Nick. Look who's on your corner. But here's why that shouldn't matter. Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen, who is second in the NFC with 1,191 receiving yards this season and was just named to his first Pro Bowl, and he's joining us now from Minnesota. Adam, first of all, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate you getting up and chatting with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, of course, football, as I've learned from CC, is as much of a team game as you're going to get. But I want to start by asking you sort of an individual honored question. How do you manage to go from undrafted rookie to Pro Bowler in 4 seasons?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't really know. I'm just honestly, I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm trying to get better every day. Every offseason, kind of put together goals and put together a plan to become a better all-around wide receiver and try to help this team win games as much as I can. So honestly, for me, I don't really think about it too much. Just taking it one day at a time and keep trying to get better.
Okay, one day at a time started a long time ago. Adam, take me back to the first day that you might have ever gone to training camp and saw a Minnesota Viking player. We used to have training camp at Mankato State, which ended up being Minnesota State. So take me back to the first time, your first experience of seeing the Vikings when you were a youth.
Yeah, you know, I was actually, the only time I was able to go was one time I was able to go. I was probably 10, 11 years old probably, and was able to, it was a little after you. Unfortunately, I didn't get your autograph, but got Randy Moss's autograph, which was cool for me. But you two were my favorite, my favorite players. Obviously, you two were guys that really made me want to play the receiver position and maybe want to play at a high level.
Adam, at one point, my son tried out for the Vikings, and he told me one of the most overwhelming thing was seeing those big banners of the Vikings and all the great receivers and my picture being there. Do you feel the pressure of the legacy of the Vikings and the wide receivers? Also being a hometown talent, that's your hometown team.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's pressure. I think it's, if anything, it's just you feel honored. You feel, just to be on the same field, to wear the same jerseys as you guys and all the great receivers that like you said, have played before me. It's such an honor and such a privilege, and I'm just so thankful for that opportunity because, like you said, I grew up watching you guys and to know how good you guys were and how much you guys meant to the game and meant to me, it's pretty cool experience for me to be on the other side of things now.
Adam, I want to let the audience know a little bit more about your story. So you go to Minnesota State. It's a Division II school. They don't invite you to the combine. You end up having to go to a regional combine. After you show out at the regional combine, run a 4.4, you are rewarded by not being drafted. You end up going to the Vikings, and they cut you right before the season. At any point, did you think about it? Hey, listen, everyone quits sports at some point. Maybe now is the time. Did you ever think about giving up?
Well, honestly, fortunately for me, I really never had that really time where I had, a couple weeks where I wasn't on a team or something like that. I never really had that opportunity to think, oh man, should I give this up? Am my time done? Things like that. Because the one time I did get cut, they signed me back the next day on the practice squad. So fortunately, I never had that thought come across my head, and I don't know, honestly. I probably would have stuck it out for at least that season to keep giving it a shot, and if nothing happened after that, I probably would have figured out something else to do. But no, like I said, I was very fortunate not to really have time to think about that.
Case, I want to ask you about your quarterback situation. It's been, let's just say, a topic of very lengthy discussion, not only on our sports desk here, but I'm sure you've heard it all across since the season started. From very early on this year, Case Keenum's had a relatively short leash. He was sort of week to week, even as he continued to pile up wins. I'm just wondering, now that he's sort of proven his success to this team and you're kind of riding him into the postseason, how impressed you've been with Case Keenum as your quarterback?
Yeah, I've been extremely impressed. The way that he prepares, I mean, that's probably the most impressive thing to me is, he knows the game plan. He has the game plan memorized each week, and he probably knows it better than some of the coaches, which is crazy. And just the time he puts into it, I think he's learned through his career that he might put in too much time at times where he just needs to go home and get away from it. But yeah, I mean, just the way he prepares, the way that he talks to us as receivers and gets us on the same page, and he's just a leader, and he's a guy that as a leader that you want to follow.
Adam, over a year and a half ago, tragic accident at the Vikings practice. One of their most beloved players. Knowing players on the team that were there, you were there, talking to the training staff. A horrific day, horrific injury to Teddy Bridgewater. Seeing Teddy go back into the game and the reception that he got, give us some insight on what it meant to you as his teammate and what it might have meant to Teddy and to the rest of the team.
Well, first of all, it was a moment that was tough for me to hold it back. You never want to cry on the football field, as a man, but it was pretty close for me just because I know Teddy so well. I was with him the first day he was here, at rookie camp, and just to see the way that how hard he works, how much he loves the game, how great of a teammate, how great of a friend he is. And then to see the injury and then how all he's done to come back from that, it was a really special moment. Obviously it was a special moment when he had those pads on for the first time and suited up for the first time, and to see him being emotional, it was another one of those moments where it was tough to hold it back. But to see him get on the field again and to live his dream again, it's pretty impressive. And I'm just so happy for him and so happy he's here. He's helped me so much even this season when he's not playing. He's the guy that's, he's on me. If I run a bad route or drop a ball I should have caught or something like that, he's going to tell me, hey, you should have done this or you could have done this better. And that's extremely helpful. And I've learned a lot from him.
Adam, you mentioned holding back tears when Teddy Bridgewater came out. As a woman, let me just tell you, totally cool if you cry. We kind of dig it. So totally don't worry about that. I do want to ask you, you and Stefon Diggs have really helped open up this offense, and it's sort of led to a lot of the success you guys have had down the stretch. How do the two of you complement each other as wide receivers?
Well, I think, first of all, we push each other. We're always on each other's case. We're always giving each other crap for not running a good route, or the same thing with Teddy, and dropping a ball, things like that. We're extremely competitive, and we push each other that way. And on top of that, we feed off each other's energy. When one of us makes a play, it kind of pushes the other person to say, hey, I can do that. I can do it a little better. And so we have a lot of fun with it. We have a lot of fun with the game. We have a lot of love for each other. And we appreciate one another, and I think, like I said, we feed off one another's energy.
All right, Adam, all week long, the catch rule's been debated because of a critical play in an AFC game between the Steelers and the Patriots that could determine a bye, could determine the 1 seed. Well, the week before, there's a critical game or critical play in an NFC game that could determine a bye, could determine home field advantage with you guys and the Panthers. Very end of the first half, you got 2 feet, you got a knee, you got a hip. You have the ball the entire time, but yet for a moment right there, you re-catch it, and they took that touchdown away from you. What do you think of the catch rule?
Well, first of all, the way the rule is placed right now, obviously mine was not a catch, and I knew it right away when I felt the ball move a little bit. I kind of figured that they were going to go to review and overturn it. But honestly, in my opinion, I think the Steelers game, I think that's a catch. And even with the rule the way it is, he had possession, he made a football move, the ball crossed the line. That's a touchdown, in my opinion. And it is. I don't know if I agree with the rule in the end zone because it's so much different than the field of play, which doesn't really make sense to me. And I think that if you have control of the ball, and who cares if the ball moves a little bit, you have control of the ball, you have 2 feet in, that's a touchdown. But it is what it is, and you got to learn how to control the ball all the way through, and you got to figure out a way to do that.
Well, maybe off the air you can thank your veteran Viking wide receiver Cris Carter for writing that absurd catch rule. All right, real quick on your head coach. So Mike Zimmer for a long time was a top coaching candidate, kept getting interviews and kept not getting jobs. The media reports were he was maybe too honest in the interview room, and it turned off some owners or general managers from hiring him. He's done a great job with you guys, and he comes across as a very intense football guy. Can you tell the audience something that maybe you know about Coach Zimmer that would surprise them? Maybe something, a side of him we don't get to see, or maybe that doesn't even exist. I don't know.
Well, as much rap he gets for being a tough coach and so hard on his players and things like that. I mean, I would say he's actually a player's coach. He's a guy who obviously he's hard on us and he expects a lot out of us, and he wants what's best for us, which is great. But at the same time, he wants us to be happy, and he wants us to win. If we're winning, things are good, and he's going to take care of us. If we're not playing our best and we're not playing hard and things like that, then he's going to get after us. But as long as you take care of Coach Zim, he'll take care of you, and we've seen that this year in the way that we prepared and when we've handled our business and we watch our film on our own. He's going to give us time off, and he's going to give us a little bit more of a leash.
Adam, last question. Thank you, first of all, again, for taking time with us. You're a big-time dreamer, and you've seen your life, a fairy tale, come true. Two of my favorite receivers will be playing the Pro Bowl this year for the NFC, and that happens to be two kids from the state of Minnesota. Both of them growing up watching me, watching the Vikings. Adam, tell me, what would it mean for the Vikings in Super Bowl 52, for you and the purple and the skull, for all you guys to take that field? What would it mean for you and the organization to be like, wow, as a little kid, my dream of playing for my favorite team, now playing and representing the Super Bowl? What would it mean for the city?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it mean a ton to this locker room. I mean, all the work we put in, all the time, and all the OTAs and training camp and all that stuff that we've done to get to this point. It would mean a lot to us. And then, like you said, growing up a Vikings fan, watching you guys do what you did, and that you feel that from the fans. You want it bad for them as well, because it's been so long since the Vikings have been even in a Super Bowl, and then obviously never won one. So and all those tough years with the missed field goals, and all those years that we almost had it. You kind of bring that with you this year, and I think even guys that didn't grow up as Vikings fans, they feel that. They know how bad the fans want it. They know how much they care. Even when we've been bad, the fans have stuck around us, which sometimes you don't get around the NFL. So, I think it would definitely mean something, and it would be big for us. But at the same time, we're just going to take it one game at a time and keep trying to get better and try not to look too far ahead.
All right, sticking with the Cavs here. Look who made an appearance in a uniform at pregame shoot-around. It was one Isaiah Thomas. He was loosely slated to return around this time, but he's still waiting to be medically cleared for actual game action. Cavs didn't need him in this one, though. LeBron went for 34. Kevin Love added 27 as Cleveland beat the Bulls 115-112. Not lost on us. The Bulls had a 7-game win streak going. Yeah. Great for them. So what did being back on the floor mean to Isaiah Thomas? Here he was after the game.
It was everything. I mean, when I was out there in warm-ups, it just felt like I was a rookie again, like my first game. I haven't been in an arena like that where you're warming up, you're with teammates. Like, that's so new to me right now because I've been down since May. So just being out there, it put a smile on my face. Like, it was everything for me to just put a jersey on and feel like I was part of the team. And that day's coming sooner rather than later.
It's an interesting discussion because, of course, we want to see Isaiah Thomas back in uniform, but Cavs are playing really well right now, exactly the way they look and exactly the way they're stacked. So what do they actually need from Isaiah once he returns, Nick?
Right when he returns, they don't need much. They just need Isaiah to slowly work his way into shape, work out his rhythm with LeBron, and find his hierarchy on this team. Is he going to be the second option with Kevin Love dropping down to the third, or is he going to be the third option with Kevin Love staying as the second option? Like, the Cavs are in an interesting spot because 2.5, or I guess it would have been 3.5 weeks into the season, when they're 5-7, a lot of the conversation was, listen, we can't panic about the Cavs until Isaiah gets back. They're going to, of course, you lose your second best player. You get just Jay Crowder in return, essentially. You're going to struggle. But now they've won 19 of 21. Now that all of a sudden they have one of the best bench units in basketball, and now that LeBron is playing the best basketball of his career, they don't need much from Isaiah right now. Now they will in the NBA Finals to have a chance to beat either the Rockets or the Warriors. But right now, what they will need from Isaiah when he gets there is just to let him ease back into basketball, get into rhythm, and keep their fingers crossed his hip doesn't get re-injured.
Yeah, let's not forget the journey of Isaiah Thomas. They have a very interesting documentary with him. He's actually has a TV crew with him the day that he got the call, the text actually from Danny Ainge, which led to a call letting him know with his family there, him going through his house, getting ready to tell his kids. I mean, he was really shocked that Boston was trading, and he was, as he began to tear up and was like, I did everything for that city. I can't believe I gave my heart, my soul. I was injured, but I injured my hip more trying to play, made it worse, and they got rid of me. he's never been on the court with LeBron James. That's the first time he put his jersey on, and him and LeBron are actually on the court in a game. He's like millions of kids the way they're going to be Sunday night, Monday for Christmas. I mean, this is a great opportunity. He's in the last year of his contract. He's on a very good team. In his mind, he knows this team is a lot better than the Celtics. So it had to be a little overwhelming because this journey that he's been on, you talking about a chip on your shoulder. He's always had a chip. You go back and listen to his high school story, college story, lack of attention being drafted, even with the Celtics. So
bounced around the league once he got to the league.
Yes.
He scored 20 points a game his third year in the league, but Sacramento's like, we don't want him. Phoenix,
that ain't good
we
enough.
don't want him. Boston, he goes there, damn near wins the scoring title, has the tragedy with his sister, gets the team to the conference finals, is an all-NBA player, and they trade him.
Right, and let's not forget, who's starting at point guard for the Cavs right now?
Jose Calderon.
Yeah, God bless his soul.
Right.
But, he should be the 12th, 11th, or 10th man on the Cavs bench. So he's filling that spot. All he has to do is do exactly what Calderon is doing right now. He's a better shooter. He's a better ball handler. Now, he's not as good defender. My thing is fit in and play defense. Win your teammates over on the defense end. He's not a great defender, but be in the right rotations and playing the right way, I believe, slowly gets into where the offensive productivity gets back in February.
And that is the key. The fact that the Cavs don't need him per se, but could use him. Yeah, he gave you 28.9 averaging last season, and it would be great to have that. But the Cavs don't actually need that right now. And what that does for Isaiah Thomas, tell me if I'm wrong, is there's no pressure on him. Come back when you're feeling really good and healthy. Come back when you're starting to gel with LeBron James.
100%.
Come back when you know where your role fits into this team. Then they can really use you. So if the Cavs were in a position where we talked about they were a couple weeks ago, where they were desperate for him, where they couldn't find any rhythm, that puts a lot of pressure on this guy to rush back and to perform like he did last year.
I've watched IT on the bench watching LeBron. And the reason why I think this is important is because I've talked to other players, that being Dwayne Wade. I talked to him personally about LeBron, Ray Allen, Shane Battier, Mike Miller. And these guys talk about, there's a kind of a legacy of LeBron. But when you play with him and he's on your team, he's a better player. He's a better teammate. He's a better human being than even what people say. So IT getting that opportunity when only one who believes in IT right now to him is LeBron and the Cavs. So I just think it's going to be very interesting. And as we were talking to some people yesterday, the NBA season really starts with Christmas. So what has he missed out on? Right. All right, we're getting right at those Christmas games. It's going to be an exciting finish for the NBA.
By the time Isaiah takes the court, the Cavs might be the best record in the East. Right now they have the same number of losses. Celtics, just one more loss than Toronto.
Yep.
I want to talk about one historical point for the Cavs and one future point for Isaiah Thomas. The timing of this, I don't think, could be better for Cleveland. Because what do we know about LeBron James in January or February? There is always some drama. It's usually self-induced or self-inflicted. His first year in Cleveland, January, February, he takes basically a 2-week mid-season vacation, goes down to Miami, trains with D. Wade, watches Ohio State win the national championship. He's just gone. I need to get away from here. They don't typically allow that in pro sports. The second year in Cleveland, the same time frame, he sends the fit in or fit out tweet directed at Kevin Love. They fire David Blatt. Last year, January, February, we need a bleeping playmaker around here. He's once again sending cryptic tweets. Well, now, in January, February, LeBron's not going to be able to be frustrated with things. He's going to have to be focused on getting IT indoctrinated with the team.
He's playing the best basketball of his career. And he's healthy.
And if the team goes in a swoon in that time, I don't think LeBron would lash out because it's about, listen, we got a new guy. We got to get him involved. So that's the history of it. The future is this. Every single all-star, every single player LeBron's played with that was an all-star before LeBron got there, shot their career high from the field once LeBron got there. So D-Wade was an all-star before LeBron. Kyrie was, Kyle Korver was, Chris Bosh was, Kevin Love was. All of those guys shot their career highs with LeBron.
What do we call that?
So a force multiplier. Oh, the ultimate force multiplier, right?
Yes.
So Isaiah Thomas scored 29 a game last year, and he did it on 46% from the field, 38% from three. He's not going to score 29 a game this year, but I bet you he shoots a better field goal percentage and a better three-point percentage, and those were good percentages because LeBron puts his teammates in the best position for open shots. We are going to see a better version, maybe not a more productive, but a better version, more efficient version of Isaiah Thomas than I think we've ever seen. And CeCe, that lineup, when they want to let LeBron play point, have Isaiah as a shooter, Kyle Korver as a shooter, Kevin Love as a shooter, and then one of the J's, either JR, Jay Crowder, or Jeff Green, who's ever having a good game, as the fifth guy. That is going to be a deadly offensive lineup.
And also watch the subplot. IT's in the last year of his contract. He needs to play well to be able to keep LeBron there. I mean, they're going to have to try to keep IT, or I believe IT would be a part of the solution with LeBron staying there.
Realistically, a couple weeks, do you think?
Yeah, I would say somewhere around January 10th, you'd see him. Maybe a little bit
He might play
earlier.
a few games in the G League.
He came out yesterday and said, listen, the team said he might. He said, I am not going to the Canton Charge. Listen, Isaiah Thomas declared himself not interested in the G League.
Hey, IT, Canton's nice.
If you're from New York, there's no better place to take in a game on a big night than the Garden. Last night, big game, big night, Garden.
Jenny, you have to stay awake.
Dude, I was not invited. Kristaps Porzingis back after missing 2 games with a sore knee, but only sort of back, right? So he went 0 for 11, finished with 1 point. Celtics star Kyrie scored 32. So guess who won? Exactly, the Knicks. 102-93 on the back of Michael Beasley's 32 points off the bench. Boston started the season 21-4, but they're 4-5 in their last 9. So, Nick, I ask you now, is it time to start worrying about Boston?
Well, it's time for people to...
Besides
Where's Chris
Nick?
Mannix? Where's Chris Mannix today? It's time for people to be honest about what the Celtics team was always going to be this year once Gordon Hayward went down, which is a slightly improved version of who they were last year. The key components are still there with a better new Jason Tatum, I should say, a better Jaylen Brown, swapped out IT4 for Kyrie. The Brad Stevens is still there. They're a team that needs Kyrie to do almost everything offensively when Al Horford's struggling. Last night, Al Horford struggled. Jason Tatum only took 9 shots, which is curious to me. It's odd to me that he's averaging for the season 9 shots a game. I think he is a special offensive player even as a rookie. But they are going to have to win games defensively. And last night their defense was okay, but it wasn't a total lockdown defensive effort. And if Kyrie scores 32 and you still struggle to score 90, you realize that offense can grind to a halt. And you just look at the players. They were only missing Jaylen Brown of their key contributors, and you just don't see a ton of offensive talent there. So this is a team that's going to be, at best, the second best team in the East, at worst, the third or fourth best team in the East. But that's who they were always going to be, that 16-game winning streak notwithstanding.
Forget what the numbers say defensively. Forget what the record says. Forget what percentage they're shooting. We sat about 5 rows behind the bench. They're just not that talented. They're not that big. Without Jaylen Brown and without Tatum playing together, they're really not that athletic. You know, Kyrie can dribble, and he has a certain amount of quickness, but he's not as athletic. When you're talking about NBA athleticism, they don't have it. The center, the man,
Aaron Baines.
Aaron Baines with the man bun. First of all, get rid of the man bun.
Come on,
okay.
Leo had a man bun.
Yeah, well, he ain't Leo, though.
Who?
Leo DiCaprio.
Your neighbor?
DiCaprio can pull it off.
Okay.
Aaron Baines can't pull it off, man.
No.
I'm letting you know right now.
No. And if he could shoot, I'd let him wear that.
Yeah.
or work on your shoot. So they just don't have the bodies.
Right.
And you wouldn't see this until you saw it. Without Jaylen Brown, I mean, at this young age, they're a different team without him. Without his explosion, without his shooting, it's basically the Kyrie show. And the Kyrie show absent of LeBron, it was a lot like last night. When Kyrie does not have another superstar or two, he doesn't have a great record. Nick is pointing this out.
And he's still a special offensive player.
Yes.
But I mean, Cece makes a really good point. It was a lot of what we saw with Kyrie 4 years ago, which was he scored 30-plus on 27 shots. He took 15 threes last night. But I'm not, by the way, I'm not blaming Kyrie. They had no other choice. If they're not going to get Tatum more involved in the offense, then and Horford's having a bad night, who's going to score for them? It has to be Kyrie. I'm not knocking Kyrie for that at all, but that's just where they're at right now.
Can I just stick up for my Celtics for one second?
Please.
Celtics played the second night of a back-to-back.
Yes.
They played a league-high 35 games. It was like their 5th game in 7 nights or something. They dressed like 11 players. Everyone else was banged up or hurt. So give them they'll have played, I think, more games in January than almost any other team in the league at this point. That first half has been really, really stacked for them. They're tired, and they're worn out. And I'm sure the two of you being at the game together last night probably saw that. Did you get a chance to see that?
Yeah.
So, I know what you're saying, that you probably saw their talent.
I was getting ready to say something else.
Right ahead.
Here's the thing, Jenna. That's all true. But
all true.
Losing to the Knicks when Kristaps doesn't make a basket,
yes,
is problematic.
And he was just coming back from injury, so he wasn't nearly 100%. And their best scorer besides Kristaps, Hardaway, he didn't play.
I want to say one thing about that, because you mentioned an interesting point about being tired. Brad Stevens, you guys know I am a disciple of the Church of Brad Stevens. You guys know how much respect I have for him. I think he's clearly one of the 2 best coaches in basketball. He's doing something very interesting with Kyrie's minutes. Kyrie is 50th in the NBA in minutes. 50th. He's not coming off an injury. He's 25 years old. He subs him out midway through 4th quarters so he can have that burst at the end of the 4th quarter. That's playing with fire. Kyrie playing 32 minutes a game. Kyrie is playing less minutes than any of the stars on the Warriors. Now think about that. The Warriors have more offensive firepower than anyone. They're blowing people out all the time.
And they're playing more minutes.
And it's not much more, but Kyrie's playing less minutes than them.
Yeah.
He's playing less minutes than he played last year. I get it. It's what's allowed him to be so special in the waning minutes of games, but we've now had their last 3 games, he's been incredibly special in the waning minutes. They lost 2 of them and could have lost all 3. That's an adjustment I would look to. If Kyrie Irving, your 25-year-old superstar, should be playing more, he's playing fewer minutes right now than Lonzo Ball. And we've talked about if Lonzo's minutes need to get up. That's something to watch.
I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.